Okay, good afternoon, everyone. There are a lot of familiar faces. That's actually quite daunting. We normally get the luxury of performing to just whoever happens to be there, and it's a little bit of extra pressure now. But thank you so much, all of you, for coming. My name is Nicholas Young. If I haven't met you before, nice to meet you. Some of you have to call me Dr. Young through most of the week, but we're not at school right now, so I guess anything goes. Now, this afternoon is really a very special occasion for everyone involved. It wasn't that long in planning this. I don't even know the full story of it yet. Huang might be able to give us some more story a little bit later today when he comes up to Q&A with me. But around the end of September or the start of October, I was very generously invited to organize a performance here, and I haven't played in a while, so this really is a treat for me. Many of you in the audience have had the pleasure of learning piano as well through me or with other teachers. Sometimes you take exams. November is the month of MEB exams. It's not the only time, but a lot of people take their exams. So it's kind of the tables have turned now. This is now my time to try and do what I'm supposed to do. And this is going to be a roughly 60-minute recital with some works of music, of piano that are very dear to me. Some of them aren't originally for piano though. So this first one is called Chaconne. It's from the Violin Partita No. 2 in D minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. It is considered a masterpiece of the violin repertoire, but it's played often on other instruments as well, including piano. So this is one of probably the most famous transcriptions for piano by Ferruccio Busoni, who's an incredible Italian-German pianist, one of the big legends. You'll hear in this arrangement that he really takes the piano and turns it into something quite symphonic, quite monumental. And it's not just there's a lot of theories on what this piece is about. Some people think Bach wrote it as a memorial for the death of his first wife. That story probably is not true, but it's a handy one to use for your imagination if you'd like. This arrangement certainly feels like a monument and memorial to Bach himself, and a sort of pianistic celebration of his legacy. Bach was famously very devoutly spiritual. He was a devout Lutheran Christian, and so you'll hear if you want to listen to this with a particularly kind of spiritual lens, that you'll find if that suits quite well. Otherwise, you're free to think of your own story. I think this piece would actually work very well as a piece for Fantasia if they ever did that again on Disney. So please enjoy Chaconne. Right, that's the longest piece done and out of the way. Technically, we're not counting the sonata. Good. So, Chaconne actually means it's a dance. It's a Spanish dance from the 16th century. But when Bach used that as the title for his Violin Partita, that movement of the Violin Partita, it's more of it's a sort of borrowing of the dance, an evocation of the dance, but really the piece itself is a stream of continuous theme and variations, really. So that chord progression you heard at the start really just unfolded and unfolded and became this, wonderful work. Quite astounding, and how well it holds together. It's really something very special. Okay, a couple of smaller pieces now, and it's quite a serious program. This one, I'm sorry, it's not a lot of light-hearted pieces in this one. Maybe next time. But this is a well-loved classic as well. It's the Intermezzo by Brahms. So whereas the Chaconne before was continuous variations, this one is what we tell the students is ternary form, ABA, or you could think of it as a sandwich. Two outer sections that are very similar, almost the same, with a contrasting middle section. And then the Rhapsody is in fact the exact same form, a ternary form, two outer sections that are almost identical with something different in the middle. The form is something that composers learn how to write well, how to write good music, effective music. But the number of ways they can go about that's the part of the variety and the joy that we listen to in music. So the Intermezzo, a little bit shorter maybe, and very tender, very gentle, and then the Rhapsody a little bit more dramatic. Now Brahms was similar to Bach. They both had a love for form and for order and for structure, and no matter how passionate each of them got, everything was always under a very carefully thought out design, like I would say, like a very carefully written speech. The next piece, and the final and main piece for this program, is the Piano Sonata No. 2, Opus 22 by Robert Schumann. This word sonata comes up a lot. You see it a lot in classical music programs. The word doesn't really mean much. It's built from a Latin word. You think of the first three letters, S-O-N, son, just means sound. So it's just a piece of sound. Over time, certain conventions developed in terms of what a sonata should have. And one of those conventions was that it would have a number of movements. Movements are like, I guess, sort of sections, they're almost like different pieces. Some composers would make them a little bit more unified and each movement would relate to each other. Sometimes they're just like, different acts of a play, or just completely, like three completely different portraits, just with unrelated to each other. Late Baroque composers wrote lots of sonatas. Classical composers wrote lots of sonatas. Mozart's famous for sonatas. Beethoven's famous for sonatas. The Romantics didn't write as many sonatas, partly maybe because it just kind of fell out of fashion a little bit for various reasons. The Romantics were very interested in programmatic music that was based on or inspired by whether it's a play or a famous play or novel, or just particular characters or emotions, and they would have very descriptive titles for their pieces. That said, there were other generic titles that I guess came into fashion, so maybe that's not quite true. But sonata, one other reason I could think of, just when I was thinking about this the other day, is that the sonata in the classical period was a sort of like an essay. It was an essay in music. You'd have to put forth one idea or one statement, and then you'd have something contrasting, antithesis, thesis and antithesis. And then part of the fun of writing the sonata was in working out how you might reconcile them, or how you might resolve them. Hence, we call it a resolution in certain sections of a sonata. The Romantics weren't so into resolving conflicts. Schumann was quite enjoyed having his different personalities, different characters. So you'll hear in the sonata, he really lets all his various impulses just roam free. He's not particularly interested in resolving them or bringing them to some logical, rational, conclusion. So there's 4 movements in this sonata. There are some German words in their titles. So the so rasch wie möglich just means as fast as possible. So we love seeing that in music. It's very rare to see that in the title of a movement. Then andante just means flowing. Getragen means drag, so there's a little bit of a contradiction there. And then so rasch und markiert, quick, or fast and marked, and then a presto rondo to finish. I'm pretty exhausted. All right. Now, usually this is where you have an encore, and today is no exception. Before that, some announcements and thank yous. Thank you, of course, firstly to Mr. Huang Pham of Huang Pham Productions. He's the wonderful gentleman who you would know performs amazingly. He produces his own concerts, and he has 3 kids, and he has a full-time job at Hailery. I don't know how he does it. Don't know where he gets the energy from, but it's very much his initiative that we've had today's concert, and hopefully more in the future, more next year. Thank you to Greg, also of Australian Piano Warehouse. Let's give a round of applause to Huang and Australian Piano Warehouse. It's not easy for performers to find opportunities to perform and to have the chance to play in wonderful spaces. Some spaces are either take a lot of auditioning or a lot of investment of time and of finance to make it happen, and Australian Piano Warehouse have been very generous in lending us this space today, so my big thanks to them. Lee, my partner, for taking good care of my pianos. She's a budding piano technician, so if anyone needs tuning or regulation or repairs, we have some business cards over on the merch desk, so please help yourself to a card. She loves pianos and knows more about them than I do, so if you have a piano that's in need of some care and repair, please get in touch. And a big thank you, of course, to all of you for making today so special. It was quite thrilling for us that we were able to sell out the tickets that we were planning, that we had capacity for, very early on. And that gives us a lot of peace of mind that we're putting on a good thing, and also helps me to free up my mind to get some proper practice done. So it all helps, and it doesn't go unknown when we see early ticket bookings, so thank you so much for that. There's one more piece to go, because this is kind of what it was all prepared for, in a way. There were a lot of purposes, a lot of missions for today. This is one of them. This is something I've never actually performed, so I've given away some secrets. Everything early in the program has more or less I have played before someone before, so a lot of thrills and spills and danger points, have been felt before. Not for this coming piece. And this was something I avoided learning and playing for a long time. Growing up, I did a lot of competitions and so on and so forth in Sydney, but they're very similar to what you have in Melbourne. And there was a piece that everyone at some point would learn and perform and have a go at. Some played it really well, some maybe didn't quite get to the end, maybe sometimes. It wasn't so much a compulsion, it wasn't something that everyone had to do, but it was sort of something that everyone would always ask you, could you play? And it kind of got very annoying up to a certain point. So my answer at the time was that, oh no, everyone's playing it, it's a bit too cringy, everyone's trying to do it, everyone's trying to be very flashy. The reality was actually just I didn't actually have the coordination for it. You'll see what I mean when I start the piece. I just didn't have the coordination for it, so I did learn a little bit of it, and the notes weren't too bad. It was tough to read, but it was more just I couldn't get through the opening. So we'll find out today if I do. We started today with a transcription of a violin piece, so this one is also a borrowed piece. This one also belongs to the violinists. But it becomes something a little bit different on the piano. Some things work, I would say, better for the theme and the topic of the piece. And other things, of course, you can't imitate. There are some things a piano just can't do. I'm always telling this to audiences and to students. But we have to make the best of what we have on this instrument. You'll probably recognize it, but if you don't, there'll be a Q&A after this performance, and Huang's going to ask me some questions. So, well, if you don't know what it is, just if I forget to say it, just ask me. So, first attempt, and the moral of the story is some things. This piece, I learned a bit of it maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and then I just put it away. I couldn't do it. I came back as part of this concert, and as part of kind of going ahead with this concert, I thought, what if I could do this? And I tried it, and I thought, oh, maybe I've got a chance today. So wish me luck.
I know he's now relaxed. It's all over. I know how it feels. Thanks everybody again for coming tonight and supporting Nicholas. A wonderful concert, Nicholas. Thank you very much for your wonderful playing. I've always wondered if you didn't teach piano and perform in another life, what could you imagine yourself doing?
I do a lot of coding just for fun, actually. I've been working on. I'd like to release an app. It'd be for music education. So this doesn't kind of answer the question, I guess. It still relates to music. But my dad programmed, apparently. I never fully sussed out the details, but he worked for a bank. I think it was St. George Bank, and it was programming whatever it meant at the time, which I'm sure that has always evolved and such. So I feel like I would have gone to there if it hadn't been for piano. And actually, when I was growing up, I did have a very clear idea that I would actually finish the piano, because my brother was 6 years older than me. He was taking his grades, and I thought, okay, I'll just keep at the same rate as him. I'll get my MS, my LMS, and then I can do my HSC, which is like the VC here, and then I can go and live my life, and I'll enjoy it. And I'd be finished with piano, it'd just be done. And it didn't quite work out that way. In the most wonderful of ways, it didn't work out like that. Just with being invited to perform in more public settings and realizing that it was something that I really enjoyed doing. So I think that hopefully answers the question.
I think we're going to have some questions from the audience. So hands up, who would like to ask Nicholas a question? Okay. I might just come over, listen to the question, and then I'll repeat it for everybody.
What's my favorite piece? That's Valerie over there. Hello, Valerie. What's my favorite piece? Okay, so there's a piece that goes for 30 minutes. It's a sonata. We talked about sonatas earlier today. Sonata, the word literally means nothing. Sonata in B minor by Franz Liszt. That transcription just then was La Campanella, originally by Paganini. It's one of his caprices, but transcribed by Franz Liszt. It's one of the great piano works. I just enjoy it. It suits my temperament and also what I like, which is lots of virtuosic, fast stuff. Well, it's a beautifully expressive piece and a wonderfully designed piece as well.
Nicholas, I have another question for you, and that is, I've suddenly forgotten. Do you enjoy teaching beginner students or more advanced students?
Gotta watch my answers. But I get asked it a lot. And the answer keeps changing over time. It's gonna be a very diplomatic, very political answer, which doesn't answer anything. I love the challenge of having, a completely blank canvas, someone who's never touched a piano before, whether that's a child or an adult, and working with that and finding creative, different ways of kind of working with their life and upbringing and worldview, and kind of tailoring it to that. Because when you grow up with an instrument, as I did, you kind of assume a lot of things. And then when you get someone who's, someone grown up or a little child who comes in completely with no, assumptions, no inhibitions, I find that a lot of fun to work with. The more advanced students, it can be a little bit hit and miss sometimes. It's grueling work. Advanced teaching, so your A masters, your L masters, is grueling. It's a demanding practice, and I think the teacher kind of has to go through the whole journey. The teacher already has gone through the journey, him or herself, and then having to do it with with a student is like having to kind of relive that life again and again. And that's tough in the moment, but then when you come out with that success, it's incredibly rewarding.
And I think we'll go to the audience again for another question. Would anybody like to ask Nicholas a question?
Yes. I was wondering, is it difficult to adjust to playing on different pianos? You know, pianists, it's a different challenge for a pianist, isn't it? You know, a violinist has their own violin, which they travel around the world with, but a pianist turns up at a concert hall and has to just play on a piano they've never played on before. Yeah.
Great question, thank you. The answer I tell people before the concert is, no, it's fine. We adjust, we learn to adjust. You know, we grew up training to play different pianos, and you know, we've got it all under. We know what's, you know, we feel a certain number of pianos. We know what a Yamaha generally feels like, what a Kawai, a Steinway generally feels like. So when we're going in, just from looking at the brand, if it's one of these, you know, big kind of prominent brands, then we generally know what we're signing up for. But even within that, yes, in the moment when I'm playing, you suddenly get distracted by all sorts of little idiosyncrasies of the piano that you didn't actually think of before when you were just used to practicing it on your own instrument or another. And then those start to throw you, because every little thing on stage can just trip you up. So then part of the experience of performing is learning how to deal with that. Over time, you do you get more experience with how to deal with it and in real time. But it's hard. It's hard for everyone, and even for the best of us.
I will ask one more question, and then I'll ask the audience for one final question. Seriously, Nicholas, how long have you gone without touching the piano?
I reckon it would have been maybe a week, but not recently. When I'm on trips, maybe. Like when you're a kid and you've just finished an exam or a competition, you're like, yes, I'm taking the week off. I don't need to play this. I don't need to play this thing ever again. More recently, I guess because I accompany and teach, invariably you touch a piano, even the days when you wake up and you just tomorrow I've got to teach, I've got a company. So as much as I've been looking forward to also being able to take a break from this recital, a week is my best guess.
And we'll have one final question. Oh, I've got three. Yeah. And a loud voice, and then we'll repeat it.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. First of all, Dr. Young, thank you very much for being Manny's teacher. So,
my pleasure. It's Harry, right?
Yes.
Hi, Harry.
Absolutely.
We haven't been in touch since like the first email from like 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
So, I see there are a lot of parents here, so I'm probably, give it a very typical question from a parenting perspective. I would like to, I see how the little one actually practice piano. Yeah, there is a lot of time and investment to get to a certain level. So now we're going to talk about how we prolong the music journey for a little one. And I think joy is a big piece of that. So I would like to focus on how your piano journey with the ingredient of joy. So as far as I heard, it's probably starting from your brother and parents. A lot of pressures on. And there are inflection points somewhere and get your joy in. Is that progress or is it music itself? So I'd love to hear your story.
I'm maybe an exception. It's not a 0.01% thing. It's maybe a 10%, 15, 20% thing. But I wasn't under huge pressure per se. There was a piano at home. So, the moment I'm born, apart from the hospital, which I don't remember, I don't remember that part, but, at home there was always a piano. That was always there. And someone played on it. So my mum learned up to grade 7 before she had to give it up to be a full-time mum and, and take care of me and my brother. My brother was doing grades. So I guess that little brother, I find this with students, little brothers have an immediate advantage because they've always got some target some point of reference that they're kind of working towards. So that was it for me. Mum was playing it, everyone was kind of playing something. My dad played the guitar, my mum played the guitar as well, just like as a hobby. So music was always there, so that was a nice thing. In terms of pressure, I think for maybe reasons that maybe teachers saw something in me and encouraged me to take part in, they're called Eisteddfods, they're kind of like local festivals, local competitions, and to do a lot of performing. And somehow, I guess even on the days where when really silly things happened, somehow I still feel like I got a kick out of it. And then just preparing for the next challenge and the next challenge. And through a system like the MEB, you have repertoire, and you always know like there's a grade coming up. When I was participating in these things, there were also lots of other kids to watch, and these were kids that were far better than me at the time. They still probably are better than me, but it was watching them and having that kind of again points of reference that showed me what could be next and what the next challenge is, what the next great, fun, amazing thing was that I could try and do. And I guess I deal quite well with routine. So every year that this was happening, you'd always get this refreshment of stimulus and material and things to watch. So I think for the modern generation, it's tricky. We're a very device-heavy generation these days. And if I was a kid growing up now, I don't know how I would have coped with that. But to take the positives, there are so many incredibly amazing performances that you can watch face-to-face in Melbourne, but also around the world. Old recordings of the great 20th century pianists or violinists or other instrumentalists. Watch live streams. Sometimes there are still live streams of other international superstars, and I think watching those, I'd say, is a great way to keep seeing, to keep it from being too stale. You've got to still take breaks. You can't be practicing for a concert or a performance and then immediately going on to the next thing straight away. I think there's got to be breathing points too, and just living, experiencing other things in life. I think those are my thoughts. Inflection points. There were parts where I did get bored and tired, especially further down the track after I went into university, where I was studying music as a bachelor degree. Did very well in that. And then I got stuck. I started a first year semester master's in Sydney. I did one audition for an overseas conservatorium in Berlin. And then I didn't get that. And then I didn't get into that for various reasons, which I won't go into here. Not necessarily because of my level, although the standard is very competitive everywhere, but that wasn't necessarily the reason. But then I got stuck because I played a lot of things in Australia, done a lot of really exciting things in Australia, but then it was like, well, what's next? And not getting into Berlin was very disappointing. And then I didn't play particularly well that semester, just kind of going through it in Sydney. Very fortunately, just very luckily, I did go back overseas on a different trip half a year later for the next round of auditions with a slightly refined strategy, and did make it into something that then was very genuinely very exciting. I got to travel the world, then did some competitions overseas, got to watch some of the great international masters, those who don't necessarily come to Australia that much because I don't think we can afford them sometimes. It's such a long journey for some of these masters, but to be able to see them and just experience that life, those things for me ended up kind of helping me to attain whatever prizes or degrees that I ended up furthering into in my music, and just getting better and more inspired with music was really just from those other life experiences too.
Well, can everybody join me once again in thanking Nicholas for his wonderful performance tonight? Thank you everybody again for coming tonight. Please hang around a little bit for tea and coffee and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you again.